Regarding all planets and signs having dark and light, higher and lower manifestations, our left brain, that is linear and dichotomous, thinking tends to choose the light and avoid the dark, chose the higher and repress the lower. Isn't this one big reason for a buildup of problems that we steer into? Isn't it the decisions we make to sustain status quo that builds up a future tsunami? This last sentence speaks about the importance of taking care of putting limits, that is separation, to be dealt with directly in the now. The only time that is real, a delay of action, is as well based on the future, which doesn't exist. The black and white belongs to left brain, and it is what we generally speak of as logics, linear and rational thinking. This is the Western culture's version of order. This is a theme of thinking that is relevant today as we all face the transits of Neptune and Saturn conjunct in Aries, together with a solar eclipse in Aquarius, carrying the lunar nodes of Pisces Virgo, dealing with unity versus discrimination. Saturn deals with discrimination, judgments. She's responsible for the experience of separation, for sorting our thoughts and emotions into two main drawers inside our minds, dark and light, the past and future, or you can see them as south and north node, which in my interpretation also correlate to the lit versus the dark side of the moon. The south node of the moon is your past life habits that has been sent down into darkness, habits that have been incorporated into your body and works you like an autonomous machine without you even reflecting on what you are doing. This is the reason for the soul's direction in life, and this is the reason as to why your south node, which is your past life ego, became overemphasized and hence considered something you're supposed to escape from and set as a conscious goal to identify with its polar opposite. The north node, which carries the same theme in itself but on a conceptual level, conceptual thinking is the map. But is this direction towards the north node a truth that we all can agree upon? What is considered dark will be put in the subconscious drawer. These perceptions aren't supposed to be dealt with but left untouched. Dirt is not part of my life. I'm where the light is. I'll hide it under the carpet, i.e., I'll stuff it in the subconscious mind. The dark side of the moon here, no one will see it. Future never comes. Linear time is just a construct of the mind. It belongs to the map and not to our existential reality that is the life we live in, the now. Eventually, the tension between the past and the future may become too big for the ego, who lose the ability to carry the electricity generated between the polar opposites in conflict, the ID. So what is the solution to the ego's sorting of life into its own order, creating these private inner maps that has to be obsessively compared to others' version of their map? This comparison of conceptual knowledge/maps is what goes on in the upper half of the zodiac, which is actually life inside of a derivative. Not an existential life itself, which takes place in the lower half of the zodiac, an instant, actual undivided and direct experience, in an attempt to derive what we call consensus by interpolation that results in having the truth. Well, the urge for control that thought carries comes from fear, and the only way to extinguish fear is to accept it, to absorb it, allow it, eat your fear, let go of control, dare to fall and lose your compass, lose your marbles, let go of what you think is order and accept the fact that you're just as crazy as the other monkeys here and that no one is actually in control of anything. Develop a faith which is a trust in universe as a benevolent force that carries you. Understand that the flow of source are not here to harm you. The dissolving of what you thought to be you is not a threat at all, but a liberation from an insane idea. A castle of air imagined and actively living only inside of your mind and protecting itself as the mental parasite. Ego is a retard thinking it's grandiose and better than everyone, and its full life path consists in enhancing this idea of grandiosity by beating others in different areas of life. When an ego is beaten in its own game, it dies. It has to, since the cellular walls that carries this mental organism is the idea of its own superiority. Once crushed, it has to rebuild itself from the ground up again, and this ruin often seeks its origin in early childhood, is connected to Mars, the warrior, rage, and a primal conflict stemming from the original bonding with the mother, which is symbolized by the moon in astrology. The conflicting view of dark versus lit side of the moon is actually a rest from this conflict with the mother in what psychologists call the individuation process, where the young child goes through a crisis when the mother sometimes is considered evil when she won't fulfill the baby's need for emotional security. A young child that goes through the individuation process with success will understand that opposites is part of life. The dark and the light belongs to and lives through each other. All opposites are one and the same. The mother is one mother and she's both good and evil depending on the situation, and actually there is no separation between you and the other. The world is one. Our biggest problems is our identities. Read that as identity, and think of it as what Freud spoke about as the limbic system. Here is your autonomous instincts incorporated into body. Here is your south node that rules you by desires that you don't even recognize or understand because they are located in the dark side of the moon, which is only accessible for those of us who dared to fall into the void, who dared to become familiar with the own shadow. That is what C.G. Jung described as shadow work. The individuation is actually a process of separation, and here lies a big paradox. Separation is Saturn's work, the ego's work, but it aims for escaping consensus and the collective mind. How can this be? The trick is that the discriminatory left-brain mind works not only to imprison yourself into a black and white matrix, into being the persona, read mask in a theater, it also liberates you from that same matrix once you aim this force inwards towards your own ego. The last trap is to get attached to the role of one who has escaped the matrix, the spiritual ego. A key idea here is to be aware in the present and swallow what you consider bad tasting directly, not drag it into the future, not pushing it down into the shadow as repressed. Let it flow. Which reminds me of the movie Frozen, with Elsa carrying a fear of inner built-up powers. The reason for her built-up powers probably stems from experiences of being powerless in previous incarnations, Pluto's south node energies. Pluto is best described with the metaphor of a butterfly, and there is actually one named Swallowtail, swallow your tail. A fulfilled shadow work results in you letting go of control and living in the now, without letting your own idea of what is you block the flow living through you. This path is not simple, though. There is a huge difference in the outcome dependent on what you allow to take the steering wheel, the heart or the head, flow or form. The heart, the flow, is the true path, that is fire and water. The conceptual mind, that is the left brain, will continue to separate into absurdity. This is the ego, this is air, dichotomy, fragmentation, loss of meaning, loss of love. You need to know what you are doing. You need to know if you have the love burning inside, enough to carry nothingness, which is also everything. Fire only lives in nothingness, and unconditional love only exists between fire and water. This is Neptune longing for her lost son Mars. Take a good look at your own motivations. That is Mars. What is your will and motivation to do what you do? Are you mainly beating others to build up your self-image, Capricorn? Or are you more sharing your resources in love to gain the flow of source? Note, the author speaking here have his nodal rulers conjunct in 12th house Pluto and Venus. That is past and future is already one. Neptune in 3rd Scorpio and many rebellious energies.